Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
And welcome to Go Astros. I'm your host, James Christopher, and we're out here at Constellation Field, home of the Sugarland Skeeters, the Astros AAA affiliate, hoping to catch a glimpse of Alex Bregman on a rehab start, but that didn't happen. And now Kyle Tucker's caught up in the safety and protocol list again. That and so much more. Andy and Brian are here, and hey, at least I got a delicious sundae. All right, so we're jumping in with Andy Tom Cheston. Andy, as you know, I drove to Sugarland 2 days ago to see Alex Bregman play third. I did not see him play third.
If you had gone to one of the HEBs, I think the one at Bunker Hill, you could have seen him selling salsa. So did you do that? Because I know he was there.
Okay, you know, here's the thing: is I'm not going to be the guy that says like, listen, you need to. But it does seem to me, then beginning treatment on your quad instead of shilling salsa, you can do that in the off season. We are mid-August already.
And I will say Kirk shilling salsa is delicious. A little bloody, but
God, that's so gross. What do you think of this though? I mean, like, it's been a weird dynamic because Dusty is gone from probably giving intentional misinformation to now just being vague and annoyed that he's asked about the question. God forbid he realized that he is in a fan service business. And then you've got fans fighting about whether we have a right to know. Bregman is sending out silly tweets about it. What do you, just your overview on the whole situation?
Well, you know, I don't know how contentious it is. I think there's a couple of dynamics in play. A, Dusty's a crotchety old man. And he has been, and this is not new, but Hank Aaron never had a quad injury, so he has no frame of reference from which to talk about. There are no platitudes or anecdotes that he can throw out there to distract everybody from the fact that he never answers questions. This isn't new, but he has nothing to hide it with, so it is now just very much in your face. Like, I've given you every answer that I have. Astros fans are frustrated because, as has been the norm, literally for the past decade, what we typically get with an injury from one of our players, especially one of our good players, is it starts off with discomfort. And everybody in Astros Twitter, everybody watching the show as an Astros fan will know that discomfort could mean anything from they'll be back tomorrow night to they're done for their career.
Or dead.
That's the gamut. And so that's where it started off with Bregman. He has quad discomfort. He has a quad injury, a quad strain. And now, you know, I think it started for me, the infamous tweets on the 14th of August from Bregman that actually stated, a lot of quad specialists on Twitter. Wow, so cool. And you know, that is absolutely just poking at the beehive a little bit, just seeing what kind of reaction you can get. And he got the reaction. He has a bunch of people asking him to do yoga, telling him how they stretch.
Yeah.
Tell them how they're able to stock groceries at their grocery store while still having a hamstring or a quad injury. And this is a guy talking about literally his livelihood depending on his legs working. So I'm certain that he wants to be back.
I believe that. Yeah.
I'm also certain that he also isn't a medical professional and knows nothing more than what he's told us, because I don't think he's, walks around hiding information. Astros fans, and where I think it's gotten contentious is, to your point, Dusty doesn't communicate, and Dusty is irritated about answering the same questions over and over again. As another example of that, he preemptively last night said something about Tucker not being out for a week, and you don't get to ask me about Kyle Tucker for a week.
That's my issue. We have both talked about how living through this pandemic, everyone is an expert when it comes to communicable diseases. And I don't care about those people. And I don't want to listen to a guy tell Bregman he's got yoga or needs to do yoga. But it does seem like Dusty, just be prepared to answer the question every day. And if you answer the question somewhat directly, you might not get asked the question over and over and over and over again.
But I don't think that Dusty comes from a school where he has to answer questions directly. I think the media is an annoyance. I mean, our media is particularly annoying, and I could name names, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. So I can understand.
But you should definitely follow the parody account of that guy because it's hilarious.
I will admit that I have confused it with the actual account a couple of times because it's pretty
have
down.
So have I.
But that's, you've got those personalities, and I'm sure after 162 games, which is about where we are combining last season and this season, having all of the speculation around COVID and all of the speculation around every time somebody gets put on the COVID injury list, every time somebody gets out, and you've got a lot of guys on the team who have regularly occurring leg injuries. I worry about Brantley hitting directly in front of Alvarez right now because Alvarez is hitting doubles right now, which means Brantley's running a lot.
Yeah.
And that, that's just, it is what it is.
I don't like Brantley hitting right in front of Alvarez right now because I don't like two lefties back to back. But
that's a whole different thing. And if Bregman was healthy, that wouldn't be happening. But I think that's the other thing is that Astros fans have gotten a little bit jaded and a little bit needy about this constant flow of information. I don't think it's unique to Astros fans, but that's the world I live in. It used to be that, and I don't think we're in New York or Los Angeles by any means, but it used to be you could come to Houston and be a professional athlete, and 90% of the time be left alone outside of the time you were in the park because it's just kind of more of a laid-back sports town.
Yeah.
The Astros made the mistake of winning the World Series in 2017.
Legitimately,
and made another World Series in 2019 and made the ALCS for 4 years in a row. And so you've got a fan base now who, with very short memories, don't remember 2013, 2014, 2012, 2011. And literally every year before that, where expectations were short, we're just happy to have a team and buy them. And I think in some ways that's good that there are those expectations, but I think the Astros organization, and this is beyond Dusty, has to grow up a little bit in how they handle communication with that fan group. And at the same time, that fan group has to understand that you don't get every piece of information just because you get it on other things via social media. And I think that's where the contention is coming from.
Well, and communication with the Astros has been a long problem. We've discussed this, and maybe this is even the less serious example of their breakdown in communications as opposed to sexual assault.
Well, nobody's getting fired over this.
Not yet. Let's talk a little bit about Kyle Tucker then. I mean, this seems to me, it has to at least be the 15th time he's been caught up in this COVID stuff. I can't even, it was a gut punch reading that. And it's like, we've both talked offline about our concerns about the team, and the White Sox look human again. So maybe it's not a foregone conclusion that we lose the first series to them, but it does seem like we're making it harder on ourselves when we really could be putting some distance between us and Oakland. And I don't understand how he gets caught up in this again. I really don't.
No, and I think you're seeing in college football too, with media days that have happened over the past month and camps coming. There's a lot that's been put on these players in regards to not letting your teammates down in the same way that you would train harder because you want to be the guy that, shoulders the burden for your team. There's certainly some, thoughts in my head about, you should be the guy that gets the vaccine so you don't run into these kind of issues. Now, I am not the person who thinks everybody should go run out and get a vaccine or we should be forcing people to get vaccines. But I think when you have a career that's based on your physical ability to perform, then the expectations are probably a little bit different. And I'm sure that, the 5 or 6 viewers that we have are going to send me hate mail, at least 50% of them, because that's how the country seems to skew on this right now. I think it's time for Kyle Tucker to man up a little bit and either avoid the situations that he needs to avoid, which he's doing a horrible job of, or get the vaccine and live his life. And he can't have it both ways. And what we've seen this year is, I think I counted legitimately, it's been like 3 times, but that's 3 times more than everybody else.
Well, so, and to clarify, sorry, go ahead.
And, I don't know exactly the level, but I'm assuming that he's got a positive test right now because Dusty has shut down all communication about it, saying you can't ask me for a week, which is about how long it would be for them to get the number of negative tests they have to get in a row for him to be cleared to come back.
And then we have to hope he gets a swing back and all that. I mean, look, you and I are both Texans, and I think we have some similar political views. I do not believe that the government should mandate a vaccine. I wish everyone would get one because of being the smart thing to do. And it does seem like if you had a real shot at winning a World Series, and let's be honest, they have a real shot at winning the World Series this year. It seems like you would want to remove any possible variable between you and your goal.
You would think. And, the positive side is, back to your point, beyond Kyle Tucker, I think part of the fan frustration is it's been something for about 2 months now. It's been Tucker being out. It's been Bregman's quad. It's been Brantley's legs. It's been Alvarez not being able to hit all of a sudden and then being able to hit again. It's been Correa and Altuve going ice effing cold for months at a time. I think Altuve is currently 10 for his last 50. And Correa is worse than that.
Correa hasn't hit since he went out for COVID before the All-Star break.
Right.
It's been that long.
And so the positive is this was the first non-500 week in forever, going 4-2 against the Rockies and the Angels. And even though losing that game that probably shouldn't have lost last night because the other team hustled more, it's still, a positive week. You gained the game in the standings on the A's. And realistically, to your point about, creating some space between us and the A's, we play the Royals 7 out of the next 10 games.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to bring this up with Brian Arbor later, but I'm looking at
take care of business when the schedule allows you to take care of business.
So I'm looking at my favorite, one of my favorite websites, tankathon.com. And so they have the A's as having the second hardest remaining strength of schedule, with their hardest games being San Francisco and Houston. Easiest games, they have 10 more against the Rangers somehow, and then Kansas City. And then Houston has the 28th easiest, with its easiest games being 3 against the Diamondbacks, 3 against the Rangers, and then, of course, they play the A's and the Rays. This has to be a time where they do start to put some distance. I really believe that they'll be in a situation where that last series against Oakland won't matter for Houston outside of maybe playoff seeding.
That's kind of where I see it falling. And, if it is, it's going to be great baseball. If they're playing for the division that last series of the season, but I tend to think based on how the schedules are going to fall out, that the Astros are going to prevail and win the division. I think the issue and part of my personal frustration this year is that our, the overblown record against sub 500 teams that we all have started talking about now seems to coincide with COVID-related suspensions or COVID-related delays in player availability or overall health. And so when you lost a series to the Tigers and the Rockies early in the season, that was because of COVID. When you are struggling against the Twins last year, you don't have Bregman, you lost Brantley, you're playing Jack Wilson at third base. Who is Jack Wilson?
I thought he was the hero in Tom Clancy novels, but I've been told that was Jack Ryan.
See, I thought he was a peanut vendor that they just brought with them on the Taxi Squad, but I could be wrong. I also love Taxi. It's a great show. Reverend Jim could be your next first baseman. But that's the Yuli's been out, and it's the fact that we've been 500 shows the strength of this team since the All-Star break, because we haven't had our full team since then. We haven't had our full team since sometime in June, and you've got to think that if there's a shot at getting Bregman back, which I think there is, if Brantley stays healthy, Correa and Altuve will start hitting again at some point. These are the dog days of the baseball season for a reason. That's the schedule is going to be to our advantage, and ultimately by middle of September we will have a very clear vision of when we're closing out the division championship.
So let's do I'm going to pose a question to you and a question to me, one word answer. So you take Yuli Gurriel, Kyle Tucker, and Alex Bregman. Which of those three is the one that the Astros can least afford to be without, and which one of those three are you think the Astros are most reliant on? I think, who do we lose, and then that really does have a detrimental effect on the ball team?
A That's a really hard question for those three. So my initial instinct was Yuli, because when Yuli was out, I saw what happened in the infield. The Astros have very little infield depth. But I think the reality of the situation, that if I have to lose one of them, or the one that's most important, which is the way you framed the question, I honestly think it's Kyle Tucker. I think Kyle Tucker, beyond being a left-handed bat and a guy who provides power, solidifies our outfield. Without Tucker, we are playing either a rookie who, granted, had a great weekend, but is a rookie and you don't know what you're going to get from game to game, and it'll be pretty quick for the rest of Major League Baseball before we'll book on him. Either he's playing or you're starting Jordan Alvarez in left field in a playoff game, which is some stadiums that'll be okay, some stadiums that'll be less than okay. And to be fair, Alvarez has an incredible defensive rating right now because every ball has been hit right to him magically.
Come on now. He made a couple of
He hasn't had to go over his head. He hasn't had to deal with this stuff.
He had a nice like thigh high grab. Okay.
Yeah, well, because he didn't read the ball. He Derek Bell, both those things. And that's let me make this look fantastic because I'm not getting the read off the bat. That's what he did. When you catch a ball off your thigh, it's because you literally didn't see it until it was 5 feet in front of your face.
I was going to say the kind of the same answer. I think actually Bregman probably becomes the most expendable. And I think mostly because that's the presence of Aledmus Diaz, who has really just, if that guy would stay healthy, he's probably an all-star player. He just hits.
Yeah, and I think that you could make a pretty good argument for the way the season has gone of him being your MVP right now, if he had been not broken his hand, because he's a guy that hits in clutch situations and has been able to be bounced all up and down the lineup when he gets in, and he just produces. And it's a little bit regretful because you wish you would have had him at this level for the last 3 years instead of the constant rotation back to the IL. Which seems to be had plagued him since he signed a contract with us.
Well, hopefully he keeps it together. Like you said, easy in quotes, run coming. Hopefully we'll see some distance with the Oakland Athletics. He is Andy Tom Chesson. Thanks for jumping on this morning.
Thank you so much, Jim, and welcome back to school.
Forgot my lunch. And we continue on Go Astros with the brains behind the show. If I guess Andy and I are now the brawn, Brian Arbor. Brian, first of all, how's it going?
First of all, I believe you and Andy are the beauty behind the show. So,
oh gosh, look at that. Already a compliment on a Monday. Hey, so first of all, successful series in Anaheim?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, particularly if we look over since the last time you and I talked, they're 4-1. They played some teams that aren't very good, and they treated them like teams that aren't very good. And so, yeah, yesterday was quite frustrating because the offense didn't show up. But as we've seen for the entire 5-game series here, the pitching has been outstanding, particularly the starting pitching. We've gotten the best rotation from the starters, starting with a real good start from Jake Odorizzi last Tuesday. We'll hope that keeps up tonight.
How much of that, because the starting pitching has gotten better, even though nothing's changed with the rotation, how much of that is sort of knowing now if you get to the 6th, it feels like, I don't want to say game, set, and match, but it kind of feels like game, set, match right now.
Yeah, I think, well, one thing, Jake Odorizzi has done the worst with the third time through the order penalty. Every pitcher, Justin Verlander suffers with the third time the order penalty. We sometimes don't note it because he's so good. Jake Odorizzi has been a particular victim of that this year. Jake Odorizzi went 5 innings and 19 batters. He went only 1 batter through the third time through the order. And I think that's part of the story is that Dusty's much more willing to bring on a reliever in the 5th inning for Jake, which I hope we see again tonight, that he's able to get, officially 2 times through the order, and then we have confidence in the bullpen.
Let's talk a little bit about Garcia's start Saturday, because so I mostly listened to the game. I was driving back from Sugar Land where Bregman did not play, which is a whole other thing. But Sparky was worried about his velocity dropping. How much of it was just a grind? How much of it was, should we take from it? He grinded through that start and ended up giving up a run. And Astros won big, or how much of it are you worried about this sort of innings count that's on him as we get near the end of the season?
I'm worried about, I think both perspectives are very valid. So, Garcia gave up a home run to Shohei Ohtani. That makes him normal as a big league starter, right? Ohtani has now 39 homers on the year, and took a pitch, and more middle of the plate than Garcia wanted. But that's not a home run for many batters, and that's just let's never have to Shohei Ohtani, because it's what we do when we watch Angels games, right? Wow, they have a lot of really good players that are really fun to watch, and I'm going to enjoy us beating them. And that's the story of the Angels. And then he gave up a single to David Fletcher, who came around to score. So yeah, it looked really shaky in the first inning for Luis Garcia. He was able to settle down. He wasn't dominant, but he certainly was effective. Am I worried about him? Yeah, he's never pitched this many innings. Obviously, last season's a really weird season because he didn't get. The Astros know what he did at the alternate training site. We don't.
Sure.
But it's certainly not as many innings. Whatever he did down there wasn't as many innings had he been able to pitch, had he gotten 20, 25 starts in Corpus before getting called up late in the season. So, yeah, that's something to be sort of worried about. I'm eagerly looking forward to Jose Urquidy returning to the mound sometime relatively soon. He hasn't started a rehab assignment yet, so that's something I hope that happens this week.
How much of that, though, is, and I don't know, I don't want to get too conspiracy theory, but how much of that is the Astros know what Urquidy can do? Why not take as much time as he needs, get him 3 or 4 starts before the end of the season, and roll into the playoffs relatively fresh?
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to add a player to the roster. You don't get the big expansion to 40 like we did previously. You're getting an expansion to 28, so you just throw him onto the roster after September 1, which looks about the time frame, or maybe shortly after that.
So let's talk then again about kind of what's coming forward. So right now I've got one of my favorite websites just because it's become the word everyone hates, the tankathon.com. I don't know how much you visit that, but it's got the Oakland A's as having the second toughest strength of schedule. The Astros have the 28th easiest. And we're about to see that right now, where the A's are about to have a 4-game set with the White Sox. What happened with them with the Yankees notwithstanding, I do think they are a better team than Oakland. And Houston will get Kansas City with everybody with over a 5 ERA. How important is it to really start to see some separation in the division standings, or is it still too early to sort of care?
It is. I'm looking now at the standings basically after every series, but not after every day. If they're going to win a game, they're going to lose a game. Again, they went 2-3 in Orange County. If they go 3-1, that means they're going to lose a game, and we'll drop a game to the A's that day possibly. But that would be a really good series in Kansas City, and that's something I'd sort of look forward to. So again, the important thing for Astros fans to remember is the Astros are a better team than the A's. And so over the long scope of time, they should pull ahead. They should pull ahead from them. Over the short scope of time, they're going to drop a game every once in a while and lose a game. We saw some of that in the Minnesota series where, the poor series for the Astros and a really good series for the A's at the same time, tighten up the division race. But again, not at any level where I think anyone should be too concerned about it.
As we kind of wrap up then, Brooks Raley looked great this weekend. Just best guess, what is it? Why is it that some pitchers respond better? Like we used to see it with who was the closer? I don't want to Brett Giles, right? We used to see it with Giles where in a save situation, he was lights out, anything less than 1, and he was hit all over the ballpark. With Raley, you see it where if it's a leverage situation, he's going to choke. And if it's not, he's dominant. Is it just makeup? Is it just what your mental makeup is?
I mean, if you look at Raley's StatCast page, he looks like a really effective reliever. He's kind of regressed a little bit on that throughout the year, but he gives up a ton of soft contact. And if you look at his FIP, it's in the mid 3s. Mm-hmm. So he's just given up a bunch of base hits that have been, a bunch of soft contact base hits, much more than you'd sort of expect. And, I can tell you, well, it should move towards the FIP over the time period, but that doesn't make it any less frustrating, and to watch him, give up runs, which he's done way too many times this season. I think what's sort of notable is they clearly, after having him he was their most used reliever for the first 2-3 months of the season. He's clearly moved down the pecking order now. And even if, the Astros bullpen has kind of developed into two tandem teams. You've got hey, we've got a lead in a close game. We're going to go Stanek in the 7th, Braidman in the 8th, Presley in the 9th. And you see that a lot, that particular combination. And then you essentially have Yimi Garcia and Phil Maton as sort of their own sort of tandem that you see together. And I guess occasionally Rayleigh gets thrown in there, but he's clearly behind those 5 guys on the pecking order and behind Christian Javier. So if, Brooks Rayleigh with a good FIP but a lousy ERA is your 6th best reliever, I feel a lot better than back early in the season where he was your 2nd or 3rd best reliever.
Yeah. It is kind of nice how it falls out because, like you said, we have the Stanek, Graveman, and Presley A team. And then we have the Blake Taylor, Garcia, Maton, who's intriguing. One of the players that I like everybody else, Twitter's it has sort of got me fired up about is Jake Myers. What do you think the real ceiling of Jake Myers is? Because he has hit at every level, and hit for power. And somebody point out that he already has more home runs than Miles Straw's career home run totals. 4th best outfielder, 4th outfielder kind of guy for his career. Or do you think that there's some hope that he might be an everyday player going forward?
It's, at the beginning of the season, I didn't know who Jake Myers was, and I barely knew who Chas McCormick was. And I think that doesn't make me atypical among Astros fans.
No.
Yeah. People who follow prospects closely who knew that. So what's unclear for me about Myers is he just having his essentially career year? And his career is going to get him a cup of coffee in the majors and some really nice days, which is a really great story. Jake Myers' father made it to AAA and didn't get there. And I just got to figure that this is, imagine your son just getting just beyond you in your chosen profession. This has just got to be a great story for the Myers family. But that being said, Myers is an excellent defender. He's got a little bit of pop, as we've seen here. If he's leveled up, if he's an intrinsically better player today than he was 12 months ago, then yeah, that's someone who can be a contributor on a major league team. And that's clearly the evaluation that James Click made, that I can trade Miles Straw because I have excess in my sort of outfield, and I can use that to get a better arm in the bullpen, which I need right now. And that presumes he has faith that the combination of Chas McCormick and Jake Myers will be as good next year as Miles Straw, if not better. So
one of the things
I'm not qualified to make that evaluation. I can tell you what James Click thinks, though.
What I find interesting about that, and this is where we'll sort of sign off, but the guys at Apollo Houston who are great guys. They're really, really sharp with their wit, and they shared the clip from Moneyball about fighting over Pena. And then is when they informed Art Howe, who was misrepresented in the movie. We all Astros fans know this, that he had traded Pena.
By the way, my nephew is friends with Art Howe's grandson. They go to school together. So I've asked my sister who's seen him, does he look like Philip Seymour Hoffman? And she says no. So again,
yeah, he apparently was very upset because he's a really good shape kind of guy, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, while one of America's greatest actors, rest in peace, is not. But they shared that clip when the lineup came out because it was almost as if like they were firing a little shot that maybe, but Baker didn't want Straw traded. And some of his response has been that way. I mean, is that the sense you get that the front office is making moves and not necessarily talking to the manager the way I can't imagine AJ would have been left out of that conversation.
No. And remember, AJ's background was in front offices. AJ Hinch was never a major league coach. He didn't sort of rise up as a coach. Dusty's someone who was a player and was a coach for a very short time and has been a manager his entire career, but never sort of worked in the front office. And you're absolutely right to identify the difference between Dusty Baker and AJ Hinch is that, I'm not sure Dusty Baker knows there's a team in Sugarland and knows there's some guys there. But I don't think he's heavily involved in discussions with the front office on who these people are, where they are, where they're moving, or it's not something he's paying a ton of attention to. He's paying attention to his guys. Again, we've talked about this before. One of the great things about sort of Dusty Baker is is, hey, these are my guys, and I'm with my guys, and I'm going to defend my guys, and I'm going to make this clubhouse, work. But that doesn't mean he understands who's sort of around and who would be sort of other alternatives. It's a much more, again, Moneyball came out now nearly 20 years ago, right? And describes a reality that's very different. Baseball managers today have started to become much more people who come from the front office and are heavily involved with the front office and understand the organization better, as opposed to, Dusty Baker was a manager, contemporaneous to Moneyball, and was a manager for a decade before that. So he's very much, hey, I'm dealing with the 25 guys, the 26 guys who are in front of me right now. And so, yeah, it's one of the big differences with, to me, paying attention to Dusty Baker versus AJ Hinch. His focus is on his guys, but, he talked about this last week, right? The Astros were in a losing streak, we're in a bad sort of thing. And I said, you know what? They're not going to worry about it. They're going to just focus on what it is. They're not going to make a big deal of it because A, Dusty Baker's done that for years, and B, they've got a veteran club that's not going to be upset by a 3-game losing streak. And they go and have a 4-1 week, and they got another week here where they had the schedules favorable to them. They can go out and win some ball games.
Well, and speaking of favorable schedule, you're favorable to us. Now, before we get out of here, Brian, we do it. Let's Get To team. Want to wish a hearty good luck and congratulations to our friends at the Fond du Lac Dock Spiders who begin their quest for their second Northwoods League title in a row this year. Good luck, guys. And Brian, go Stros.
Go Stros and go Dock Spiders.